Robespierre, a mode mais.
Hello everyone, welcome to another show of Robespierre a mode mais. As you can fully understand, today the episode will be in English because we have a very, very special guest. We have here with us Yoav Haifawi from occupied Palestine. Yoav, would you like to introduce yourself and introduce a bit your political activity or activist activity?
My name is Yoav Haifawi. I live in Haifa, in the 48 occupied Palestine. And I am active already for more than 50 years. So you can guess my age approximately. All these 50 plus years, I oppose Zionist apartheid and occupation and advocate for Palestinian rights. First of all, the right of return and the right to live as a free people without occupation, without oppression. I am a member of the Abna el-Balad movement, which is a Palestinian movement active inside the 48 occupied territories. And I am a member of a grassroots organization in Haifa. Currently, there is a movement called Hirak Haifa, which is literally Haifa movement. And Haifa Left, which is a democratic gathering of activists in Haifa. And I'm active in all kinds of activities that are trying to resist the crimes of apartheid, the war crimes that are executed by Israeli regime. And just to finish the introduction, I have 4 blogs. The main of them is called Free Haifa, which is my political blog in English. There is also Free Haifa Extra with additional information that is not so strict to appear in Free Haifa. And I also hold blogs in Arabic and Hebrew, which is Haifa al-Hura in Arabic and Haifa Khofshit in Hebrew, if anybody knows to read these languages.
Thank you very much for your introduction. So let's go to the subject of this interview, and we will try to take the most out of your vast experience and your vast knowledge from where you live. Can you describe us, or at least make us an introduction about the evolution of Israeli politics in the not just in the last few years, since when you want to start? How did we come up to a government with Likud and other far right parties in coalition trying to run Israel at this point?
First, let's start with the current situation, because I think to speak about anything today and not to concentrate on the current situation is escapism. So we live already 1 year and almost 2 months inside the worst atrocity in the history of the bloody, what they call the conflict, the bloody consequence of Zionist colonization of Palestine. Since October 23, after the Hamas attack on Israel, Israel started a systematic genocide of the population of Gaza, where more than 2 million people are trapped in a very small chunk of land. most of them refugees from 48, and they were already under severe siege before 23. But now they are on the most brutal attacks that even the world judicial bodies recognize as war crimes. And unbelievably, this is going on and on and on, and nobody is doing anything to stop it. Like there are many things that you would expect people to do or governments to do when there is an ongoing genocide, at least to cut relations with the State of Israel or to boycott the State of Israel. And boycott is something that almost everybody can do to some degree. But there is no effective consequences to the ongoing genocide till now. And even me, I didn't believe, even that I have the most negative view of the Israeli regime for many years, I didn't believe that they could carry on such a genocide for more than a year and not get tired of doing it and not get any international censor for doing it. So, and like till now, they every day, literally every day, they bomb whole buildings with all the population that is hiding in them, or refugee camps and schools where refugees are gathering under the what should be the safe areas under UN supervision. And they still bomb hospitals, they still prevent the food from the population at large. Even the UN says that the last month, like October, was the worst month in relation to the supply of basic foods and medicine and water to the population. So things are only getting worse. So this is an ongoing massacre, ongoing genocide that the world, all the world is watching. It is every day on TV with all the details. There are very brave journalists and cameramen working in Gaza all the time. Almost 200 journalists were killed as part of this massacre, just as many medical workers, just as many emergency workers, and just like many of the UN staff in Gaza were killed. All this part of the ongoing genocide. And it is really unbelievable how much the world can bear without getting any serious consequences against the State of Israel. Yeah. So we must start from here because this is the most significant thing that is happening. And all the rest, we will speak about all the rest, but all the rest is details that may explain us how we came here.
Yeah.
But I don't want like to think we are discussing history or discussing politics, because we are discussing mostly one of the most serious atrocities performed, at least in the current century.
Yes.
And for some reasons, this atrocity is more international atrocity, because Israel couldn't do it alone. Like maybe when there was atrocities in Syria, you can say there are two sides, they are struggling each other, and most of the world was not involved, or not directly involved. So people say, "Oh, how awful it is! What happened in Syria?" But in Palestine, at least most of the Western world is actively involved by supplying Israel with the weapons and the economic power and the political license to do all these atrocities. So, and Israel actually couldn't carry out the genocide in Gaza for more than maybe 1 month without active support from the West powers. So this is not something that happens outside of negligence or far away from the eyes of the world. Everybody see it, everybody know it, even if they don't want to know it. And it still happens, and still there is no serious attempt to stop it.
If you could, Yoav, and sorry to interrupt you, but because you mentioned the previous siege to Gaza, at least to me, this seems like a very stepping up and speeding up of the process that was ongoing. That siege seemed to be built and seemed to be made to annihilate Gaza slowly, but to annihilate and to destroy Gaza. And that looks like at least one of the objectives of Likud. Am I reading it wrong? Or
First, let's remember there is something. We are not speaking actually about the Gaza city, but about the Gaza Strip.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the history of the Gaza Strip. Okay?
Yes.
So when the Zionists occupied Palestine, it was not only in 48, or they occupied 78% of Palestine in 48. The main act that established the Palestinian problem as it is today was the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. And Palestine was densely populated. There were cities, there were hundreds and hundreds of villages. And when they expelled the population, like most of the population from the north went over the border to Jordan and Syria and to what was under Jordanian military government at the time in the West Bank. But most of the population from the south of the country was pushed to the Gaza Strip. So Gaza Strip is actually under siege from 48, not from 67 and not from 2006, Yani.
Yeah.
And even in the first years, what the Israeli wanted is to get rid of the Gaza, because this was the biggest concentration of Palestinian refugees, and because most of the population of the Strip from 48 are Palestinian refugees from the area around Gaza, from Jaffa, near Tel Aviv, which is just, I'm not sure, but maybe 50 kilometers from Gaza or less.
Mm-hmm.
And all the fertile plains around Gaza were Ashdod, Askelan, Fallujah, all the area around. So all the population was expelled and concentrated behind barbed wires in the Gaza Strip. And even in 48 or 49, Israel had some initiatives to poison the population in Gaza by poisoning the wells, the water wells there, or by trying to systematically cause pandemics in this population in order to dump down the population after they expelled them from their villages and towns in Palestine. And Gaza was occupied in 56 in the, I don't know how many people remember, but in 56, after the nationalization of the Suez Canal by Egypt, Israel cooperated with Britain and France.
And France, yes.
To attack Egypt, and part of it they occupied Gaza, and at the time the populist regime in Egypt succeeded to repel the attacks, and by a joint action of United States and Russia, they demanded that Israel withdraw from the areas that it occupied. So they returned temporarily Gaza to Egypt. But also at that time, under Egypt, Gaza was still closed and still under military rule.
Okay.
So in 67, Israel occupied Gaza again. I don't want to go too long details about all this period of occupation.
Okay.
But from the beginning of the occupation in 67, Gaza was a strongest point of Palestinian resistance, to a large degree because it was the biggest concentration. Like with then it was possibly less than 1 million people, but actually one area full of refugee camps living in very harsh conditions under Israeli occupation. So it was a main stronghold of the Palestinian resistance in the 60s and 70s. And they say at the time that the resistance ruled Gaza at the night while the army ruled Gaza in the days. And if you remember, one of the most brutal war criminals in the history of Israel, Ariel Sharon,
yes.
At the time, his policy in order to crush the resistance in Gaza was to come with bulldozers in the middle of the refugee camps and to open like 4-lane streets by destroying the houses in the refugee camps.
They are doing that now in the West Bank, right?
Yes, but not to the level that Sharon did it at the time. They are doing a lot, but not to the level that Sharon was doing. And also Sharon started the policy of targeted killing. Like instead of arresting guerrilla fighters, simply to kill them on the spot. So I remember one of my first activities in the beginning of the 70s was to demand a committee of inquiry into the extrajudicial killing of the Israeli army in the Gaza refugee camps. So if you hear today the name of Jabalia, which is the biggest refugee camp in Gaza and the center of the resistance till this day, it was also the center of the resistance in the 60s and 70s. And it was big part of it were devastated already by the army under Sharon in the beginning of the 70s. So you can say to some degree there is nothing new.
Okay.
And if we go fast forward, let's say for another war criminal, which is Yitzhak Rabin, which was
the prime minister later.
He was a head of the Israeli army and then the head of the Israeli government. and he received the Nobel Peace Prize.
Of course.
When he signed the Oslo Agreement with Arafat. But he has some very famous saying about the Gaza, which say, "We wish Gaza would drown in the sea." This is what he thought about Gaza. And when he signed the agreement with the Oslo Agreement, some settlers, there were Jewish settlements in Gaza, but Rabin refused to. So the Jewish settlements, some leaders of the Jewish settlements in Gaza at the time came to Rabin and tell him, "Okay, if you make peace with the Palestinians, please take us out of here," because they knew Gaza was a center of Palestinian resistance and the center of very poor, very angry population because of the awful conditions there in the refugee camps. So they came, "If you make peace with them, take us out of here." And Rabin refused and say, nobody will get out. So this was in the 90s, okay?
Yes.
So if we go forward to the Second Intifada in 2000,
Yeah.
also in the Second Intifada, Gaza was a center of resistance, and at the time it was permanently under Israeli occupation, not like today that they discuss if it is permanently or temporarily. It was permanently under Israeli occupation, but because of the resistance, it started to cost Israel significant military losses. And actually, the main reason why Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005 were the losses to the military through these years of occupation, and especially from 2000 to 2005 under the years of the Second Intifada. So there was a big discussion how to explain the situation in Gaza, how to explain the withdrawal of the Israeli army from Gaza, from the Gaza Strip. And some people say, and there is more than one correct explanation, okay?
Okay.
Like every situation, there are different motives and different facts. And all of them take parts. I don't speak about lies, I speak about facts. So the main fact is there was a resistance, and the Israeli could not suppress the resistance. After, like, say, if it is from 67 to 2005, how many years it is?
38 years.
38 years of direct military rule with ruthless use of all the means of oppression. Israel did not succeed to suppress the resistance, the armed resistance to the occupation in Gaza. And after 38 years, it decided that it is easier for it to get out and try to control Gaza from outside. So now, this is very significant because if we speak now, Israel say we must be the guarantees of security in Gaza. So it is not something new. It is not something that they didn't try. It is something that the Israeli army did to the best of its ability over 38 years.
And when they were in a much better, okay, not better in a good kind, but in a more effective way as an army. Now they don't seem to be as effective as they used to be.
Yes, and so, and all this time they didn't succeed, and they pay a high price for it, and actually they had to withdraw from Gaza. The other side, which is the political side, they say, okay, if we withdraw from Gaza, it will relieve the pressure for political settlement with the Palestinians. So it was also part of the political game of the Israeli government to say, to like split the Palestinians between the West Bank and Gaza and say there is no unified leadership to the Palestinians. So we will control Gaza from the outside, and we will control West Bank forever from the inside, because the West Bank is the bigger area and more attractive area for settlements. So they want to continue the settlement of the West Bank and to perpetuate the Israeli occupation, direct occupation of the West Bank. And they prefer to control Gaza from the outside. And they said very clearly, it is better for us to bomb Gaza than to send troops inside the lanes of Gaza. Yes. Because when they bomb Gaza from the outside with artillery and mostly with from the air, there is very little danger to the Israeli soldiers, and they can kill many people. Even they have more justification to kill civilians than they have to when they send the army. So after 25, after the Israeli army went out of Gaza, they kept this policy of bombing Gaza regularly from the outside. And now and then they made a bigger campaign of bombing every few years. They make a bigger campaign of bombing, the highest of it in 2014 until the last one. But Gaza, to some degree, it was a free Palestinian land. So it was free from within, but occupied from without. So it's very strange political situation. But Gaza, to some degree, it prospered. Like, people study very much. There were actually, when Israel now went in and they started to destroy all the universities in Gaza, I myself was astonished to see how many high education institutions were in Gaza.
Yes. Because
the people there, they hardly could work. But if they cannot work, at least many of them study.
Yes.
Like, it's not that the population just was sitting on its hands.
And lots of small enterprises, like
yes.
I remember from the first days of the war, seeing that there were lots of small shops, barbers, lots of trade in the streets, and there were lots of bombings around the people that were in the vegetable markets and all that. It seemed like a quite busy place.
Yes, and a lot of sport and culture and whatever people can do, and they cannot travel and cannot do proper economic activity, but it thrived to some degree under Palestinian independence, internal independence. At least the Israeli army could not come and knock on your door at night like they do every night in the West Bank. But at the same time, it was, if I say about famous Israeli sayings about Gaza, like there is a Rabin famous saying that say, I would wish Gaza would be drawn in the water, in the sea.
Yeah.
There is another famous saying from the time of the withdrawal of the Israeli army. They say, now we would be able to treat Gaza without Bagatz and without B'Tselem. Bagatz is the Israeli High Court. B'Tselem is the most famous Israeli NGO that speak about Palestinian human rights.
Okay.
So actually, it was official policy of the Israeli withdrawal, behind the withdrawal, is to say, okay, now this is the enemy. We are not officially occupying force, so we can simply bomb and kill everybody without any law, without any complaints. And this was from the very first, from the very first moment. This was the official position of the Israeli government from the very first moment of the withdrawal from Gaza in 2005. And they kept this policy all the time with the different Israeli governments that took part. And one thing that is also, you can see today, but it didn't start today, for example, because like in 2006, I must remember mention this date also. In 2006, there was the only attempt by the occupation to allow semi-free Palestinian elections under the occupation.
Yeah.
Okay? So there was elections, one election, part of it in Gaza after the withdrawal of the Israeli army, and part of it in West Bank under the occupation still. And they hoped, they believed that the Fatah will get the majority in the elections, so they will give legitimacy to the Palestinian faction that was cooperation with the Oslo Agreement, and to some degree cooperating with occupation in the West Bank in preventing armed resistance to the occupation. What happened actually is that Hamas got the majority in these elections.
Yeah.
And to the surprise of the Israeli and Americans that think that they control everything and know everything about the Palestinians. But it was very natural because the people, like, they were fed up with the occupation, and so they wanted to choose whoever is the most consistent force that's struggling against the occupation, so they choose Hamas. And also for different reasons, because the problem with the Fatah leadership was not only the agreements with occupying forces without the role of the occupying forces, but also the corruption of the local regime. So people wanted to get rid of local corruption, corrupt officer, government, and they chose Hamas, which was conceived as a more clean government, especially as Hamas was, most of its activity was not military resistance, but the wider effort for Hamas was to care for the daily needs of the masses.
Yes.
Through a network of grassroots NGOs and local organizations that take care for everything, for everyday needs of the people, from education to health to welfare to many things. So people choose Hamas, and Hamas became the most legitimate government of the Palestinians because it was elected by the people in elections, even elections that were organized under the supervision of the occupation. Of course, Israel didn't want to recognize the legitimacy of the Hamas government.
Of course.
And they did everything to undermine these elections and the elected government.
That was 2006, right?
2006, yes.
Yeah.
So on one side, they did everything to undermine the government, and with cooperation with Fatah and with cooperation with the United States. And actually, the United States started to train a special Palestinian militia in order to resist the Hamas government in Gaza.
But that militia is controlled locally by whom? Fatah?
By Fatah, yes. But Actually, by the United States, not by Fatah.
Yes, of course.
To say the truth.
Of course, but locally, who are the local managers?
There was one very famous, Dahlan.
That cooperation between Fatah.
He is a Fatah man from Gaza. He was a Fatah strongman from Gaza, but he was not really under the direction of Fatah. He was more independent force operating with the United States. And they were preparing an army to invade Gaza and to topple the Hamas government.
Are they still active, or were they?
Now he is in the United Arab Emirates.
Ah, okay. And his militia they were cut off, right? Or
no, but what happened in 2007? In 2007, in the Hamas, even that it was a government in Gaza,
yes,
but they they cleaned Gaza of the Fatah insurrectionary forces,
okay,
and forced them to withdraw to the West Bank.
Okay.
And actually, in many places, if you read in the Western press, you will hear that Hamas took control of Gaza in 2007.
Okay.
So, but this was sort of a coup d'etat, but coup d'etat by the government that was elected by the people in 2006, against insurrectionary forces that tried to prevent it from governing.
That cooperation from Fatah and along with the Israeli government continues to this day, but mostly in the West Bank. I've watched news about Palestinian Authority making arrests of alleged Hamas militants and resistance fighters, and if I'm not mistaken, journalists in the West Bank also.
Yes, it happens, but to say the truth, like Fatah is playing both sides. Some Fatah people are active in the resistance.
Okay.
Like if you hear about clashes between resistance fighters and the Israeli army in Jenin or in Tulkarem in the West Bank, sometimes it is Fatah people taking part in the insurrection alongside people from Hamas against the Israeli occupation. And sometimes you hear about Fatah people or Palestinian Authority personnel in the West Bank arresting people and because they resist the occupation. So they try to play double role. And till now, as you know, there is all the time negotiations between Hamas and Fatah to unite against the occupation. But the conditions in the West Bank and Gaza are very different, because in Gaza, Israel was thrown out actually in 2005. So the Israeli army could not intervene in the internal politics in Gaza, while in the West Bank, in spite of the fact that according to the Oslo Agreement, the Israeli army is not allowed to go everywhere. There are some areas that are supposed to be only under Palestinian security, not under Israeli security. Actually, Israel is intervening everywhere and arresting people everywhere. So there is no free areas for Palestinians to move or organize in the West Bank. So actually, the West Bank is not under PA control like the Western media will sometimes, or most of the times might say, but the West Bank, all of it is under direct Israeli occupation. And the Palestinian Authority have only very limited powers, like it is more like a municipality than a government, where it is responsible for services to the people, or actually for not giving services to the people. So Israel is not, as an occupying force, is not responsible to the fact that there is no money for health and no money for education and whatever.
Yeah, sewage, roads.
This is a responsibility of the Palestinian Authority. And the Israeli government at the time is controlling everything and doing whatever it wants in the interest of the settlers and not in the interest of the local population.
Yeah.
And claims that it is not responsible for the local population because there is an independent Palestinian Authority.
Yes, of course.
So this is a kind of organization. And to some degree, for the Palestinians, it is still better that they have their own authority for their schools and hospitals than if it was under direct military rule. Okay? So we go back to Gaza.
Yes.
So as the government in Gaza is under the elected Hamas leadership, so according to Israel and according to Western powers, Hamas is defined as a terrorist organization.
Yes.
And this says that for them, everything that is done by Hamas is illegitimate.
Yes, of course.
And one of the things which I go forward in time, in 2008, there was what they call in Israel the most leftist government of the time. It was under the Ulmart
Yes.
and Barak that were supposed to be seeking peace with the Palestinians. And at the eve of Christmas 2008, they wanted to start a war against the government of Hamas. And they wanted to start a war by killing many people. And they need a justification to kill many people. So they had the knowledge, the information that there was some police course was finishing, and there was a graduation ceremony of the. It is civil police. It is not resistance against Israel. Like it is a territory with 2 million people. And there are tens of thousands of policemen that are keeping local security. But for Israel, these tens of thousands of policemen under Hamas, they are armed men under terrorist command. So they decided that all these Palestinian police deserve to die. And they started the war in 2008 by bombing the ceremony for the graduation of hundreds of Palestinian policemen. Completely out of the blue, like they say. They started the bombing, and then they started bombing everything in Gaza.
Yes.
So it is nothing new. What they are doing today, it is nothing new. It's just much more of the same.
Yes.
And I want to relate it to the fact today that one of the big efforts of the Israelis is to destroy law and order in Gaza. Not only to destroy the resistance, but also to destroy law and order in Gaza, because whenever there are people that try to organize the distribution of humanitarian aid, they attacked and bomb and kill the people that try to organize the distribution of humanitarian aid. And so they actually encourage the looting of humanitarian aid, and they encourage the gangsters to take control of part of Gaza. And this is part of the war against the society and the natural existence of the people of Gaza to make Gaza inhabitable.
Yeah, they seem to be all bent into trying to destroy everything that makes a society work, either hospitals, schools, even the police, the sewage system, electricity.
Yes, so this is, it show you like that all the things that they are doing today, they started long time ago.
Yeah.
They only do it more and more systematically with more
Yes.
force and for longer time. And now in the current genocide that is taking place in Gaza.
Diverting a bit and going to one of the issues that we wanted to talk to you.
Okay.
How do you interpret? Is this something that it's just from a narrow group of Israeli people, or is this something that most people, or at least a significant amount of people in Israel, support all this? Because from what you're saying, and if this has been going for so long, and this has been going for so long, this seems to be something that people in Israel support, or at least are okay with this kind of genocidal policy and apartheid regime.
Before we speak about people as people, let's look at the political map in Israel.
Yes, please.
Okay. So in the political map in Israel, there is no force that oppose the war on principal grounds. And actually, let's say, who is in the government today? In the government today, there are generally three camps. The Likud party, which is a right-wing party, but mostly opportunistic right-wing party, very corrupt, very low-level politicians. Completely, like everybody that had any kind of personality was expelled from the party under the dictatorship of Netanyahu. So it became, over the years, it became, all the Likud party became a personal tool for the Netanyahu family. And this is very famous, everybody that read about Israeli politics. And he is in alliance with two other camps, which are not big, but are, because the Likud itself, which is a bigger part of the government, is hollow from within. The other parts that are that have their own ideas and interests, they are more influential than the Likud itself. The one part that is most obviously now in government is a outright fascist camp, led by two small parties, one of Ben Gvir, Jewish Power, led by Ben Gvir, and the other is a Zionist, religious Zionism, led by Smotrich. The Ben Gvir Jewish Power is, they are mostly thugs, mostly people that thrived on beating opponents in the streets.
Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah. He personally did it, Yani, Ben Gvir, until recently. And the other group, the Smotrich group, are Messianic religious people. Two different kinds of lunatics.
Yeah.
But they are very much the same direction. Like they believe in killing as many Arabs as you can, and actually they have a very clear political program to expel all the Palestinians from Palestine, to settle all the land of Palestine by Jewish settlers. And their main dream is to destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque and to build the Jewish temple again.
The Temple Mount, right?
Yeah, on the Temple Mount, in order to establish the third Israeli kingdom.
Oh.
So they have a plan. They are very dedicated to their plan. And because they are fanatics, and whenever Netanyahu is not doing what they want, they say, okay, we will fail your government.
Yeah.
So Netanyahu actually the things that he's trying most is not to let them be angry at him.
Yeah.
And this is one camp that is in coalition with Likud. The other camp that is in coalition with Likud is Haredim, Jewish parties, which are a bit bigger than the lunatic camp. And they have their own agenda.
Which is?
We don't want to work, we don't want to study, we want to get money from the state, we don't go to the army, and we support whatever crazy things we are doing as far as we don't pay the price.
Oh, okay. As long as it doesn't bother them, they're fine.
Actually, many of them were even against the establishment of the State of Israel in the beginning, because they thought we are religious people, we are not involved in secular politics. And but then they found that Israel, as it is working very well for them. So, and actually they established a system where people that study the Torah, they get salary from the state. So in the beginning it was a small minority, but now because you get salary from the state for studying the Torah.
Are those the guys that get exempt from the army?
Yes,
and
yes.
now are being recruited? Okay. Yes.
So they study the Torah, they don't work, they don't go to the army.
They don't do nothing, yeah.
And this is beautiful.
Yes, of course.
The truth. And they say we are the soul of the state. If you want a Jewish state, you need people to study the Torah. And they are doing very well under, and one special thing about them, you know that it is generally known internationally that the best contraceptive is education for women.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is.
Yes, this is the only effective way to reduce the way that people reproduce.
Yes.
Unless you rely on disease and some ugly methods like this.
Yeah.
So in the Haredim population, because they don't study and they are very conservative, so they have very big families. So actually the Israeli government found a way to outdo the Palestinians demographically. Because like 10 or 20 years ago, Israel was very concerned because the Palestinian population was increasing faster than the Israeli population. And they say, okay, we will become a minority. And there were already expectations and graphs how the Jews are becoming a minority in Palestine.
Yes.
So they were very concerned about it, but they found that if they establish this kind of populations that produce many kids.
But they don't do anything else.
Okay, but they solve the main problem of Israel, the demographic problem. So it like saved Israel from its demographic concerns.
Yes.
Of course, it is not really sustainable for the long term.
Of course.
But this is the way Israel is working, Yani. This is the main elements of current Israeli society. So these are the three components of the current government, okay?
Okay.
If you look at the opposition is very fluid today. First of all, there are no real parties. There are no real leaders. This is something I think generally in the modern Western society, okay, to much degree. like the old system of real parties with real people that had real ideology and agenda and were fighting for them is gone for many reasons. This is not part of our discussion today.
Yes.
But in Israel especially, this is a situation. So there are some ad hoc parties, usually around single personalities. Some of these personalities are army chiefs, ex-generals. The most obvious of them currently is General Gantz. He was the leader of the army, the commander of the army at the time of the 2014 attack on Gaza. And when he started his political career, he started by publishing the number of Palestinians that he killed in Gaza in 2014. So his main political advertisement in the Israeli TV was, I killed so and so and so many Palestinians in 2014, so I am the one most deserving to be the head of the state of Israel. Until now, from time to time, he is regarded to be the main candidate to head the Israeli opposition and to replace Netanyahu.
Yes, yes.
The others of them are all kinds of bullies, like a strange collection of bullies. One of them was Avigdor Lieberman, which is Russian in origin. And he was, before he was a politician, he was like, how you say, the bullies that stand in the entrance of the bar and throw people out. And he was also very famous for demagogical propaganda, kill Arab terrorists and so on. And he said sometime, if Netanyahu will really attack Gaza, I will join the government. He used to be Netanyahu's right-hand man for some time until he, like many others, split from Netanyahu. But then for many years he said, if Netanyahu will really attack Gaza, I'll join Netanyahu.
Yeah.
But now he feels like Netanyahu is a burnt-out person, so he don't want to put his political career with Netanyahu. But this is a kind of person. The other one, like the other one is Bennett, which is also right-wing religious. He was like in the right-wing religious party and split somehow and became prime minister for a period. And the other one is Lapid, which was a TV presenter.
Yes.
And just speak, and he is completely spineless and just can speak with high words, but never did anything in his life. And they all try to attack Netanyahu from the right because they believe that in Israeli public opinion, it is better if you attack Netanyahu from the right.
Right.
So mostly they attack Netanyahu. Why did you let Hamas control Gaza for so long? Not why didn't you go to peace? No, why didn't you try to do something to solve the problems? But why did you let Hamas control Gaza for so long? And the last one, there is another general, Yair Golan, which now united what was left of the Israeli so-called left, which was never left, but like two parties, the Labour Party and the Meretz, the two, what was supposed to be the Israeli left. And they are both of them united. Now they found a general, so they are very happy. They can be part of legitimate Israeli policy because they are also led by a general. And this general today, he's attacking Netanyahu for not conquering greater part of Lebanon. This is the main policy issue today. So, so there is no left and right. There is right and right and right and right, and more belligerent and aggressive part of Zionism all around. So this is about the Israeli political map. If you speak of the media, in general, the Israeli media, like all TV channels and almost all newspapers, are all mobilized for the war to justify the war and to even, let's say one thing, Israel is very strongly split about one issue. This is, some people are pro-Netanyahu and some people are against Netanyahu. Like when we stand in the street and demonstrate against the war, all the time there is an odd car passing and people shouting, only Bibi, only Bibi. Bibi is, everybody knows, is Netanyahu. The other half of the people say, we are stuck in this situation and nothing good can happen as long as Bibi is here. So on this issue, people are really split. Even the people that are against Bibi, there is initials in Hebrew, RLB, which is Rak Lo Bibi, just not Bibi. So like there are Bibi people, there are RLB people. And sometimes they hate each other, sometimes they beat each other. Okay, but they are not split about war crimes in Gaza. Nobody in Israeli politics today speak about peace. Nobody at all. And nobody is even imagining making significant concessions to the Palestinians in order to allow the Palestinians to live as human beings. So this is outside of the political discourse in Israel.
From what we can gather from the Western press, they try to avoid any conversation about genocide, about war crimes, except when they are confronted with things like the International Criminal Court and the sentences, and for instance Spain deciding that they won't send more weapons or things like that. But they are usually very pro-Israel, although they try to the best of their effort to hide their the many war crimes and the genocide ongoing. How do things differ in Israeli press?
First of all, most of the Israeli press, they didn't even feel the need to hide the war crimes because they are very proud of what they are doing. But of course, they have no regard to Palestinians as human beings. So they just speak about the suffering of Israelis in the war and about the achievements of the army in killing Palestinians here and there. And they don't speak almost at all about Palestinian casualties and about Palestinian suffering. And if they speak about the Western, to the level that there is the Western protest against Palestinian, against the suffering of Palestinians, like the demonstrations in the universities or some Western countries that recognize the Palestinian state. So they speak about them as anti-Semites. And they are always very shocked how people in Europe behave like this, and how academics in Europe became anti-Semites everywhere.
Yeah.
So you can, and even like the one paper that is usually cited internationally is Haaretz. Okay?
Yeah.
You should understand that Haaretz is a minority, small minority in the Israeli media,
Okay.
but also Haaretz very limited access to Palestinian suffering.
Okay. Okay.
So, and Haaretz as a policy, they have right-wing and left-wing journalists struggling out between them on the pages of Haaretz in order to get, it is a commercial paper after all.
Yes.
So in order to get legitimacy in the Israeli public opinion and in order to get more circulation, it let relatively leftist and very right-wing people to struggle in the paper itself between different positions. But they do everything to keep inside the Israeli, not exactly consensus, but to keep their legitimacy in the Israeli racist public opinion. So if we take one example, the owner of Haaretz, Shokel, he spoke in a conference in London, and he said that Israel is fighting Palestinians' freedom fighters. He didn't say that Hamas are freedom fighters. It say in general that Israel is Palestinian freedom fighters. So there was an, how you say it, the main essay in Haaretz, denounced the position of the owner of Haaretz for calling as if there is something like Palestinian freedom fighters. Okay, because Palestinians are criminals and not freedom fighters.
Of course, all of them.
Okay, and this was the official opinion of the Haaretz newspapers. So, and also in addition to the official, many writers in Haaretz denounced this mistake, and also he apologized. So the owner himself apologized. So Haaretz is there is some, in order to keep some face, it described some of its, a minority of its writers relate to Palestinian suffering, but they never legitimized Palestinian struggle against occupation. And they continue to pose the situation as if Israel is a legitimate regime, not an occupying criminal regime, and as if it is fighting against Palestinian criminal terrorists. So, and if we want a bit further, there are two sites, electronic sites, that supposed to represent the alternative, which is 972 in English.
Yes.
I don't know if you know the site, which have a sister site called Local Call, Sicha Mekomit in Hebrew. But even in these sites that are supposed to be really progressive and democratic,
yes,
they never, I think that the position in the at the time of the atrocities in the current war is completely moral failure, because they never portray the suffering in Gaza as the headline, as the main issue of the current war. They speak about the need for peace and for understanding and try to find some ways into the Israeli public. But some of the writers, even some writers that are regarded to be the most progressive ones, they say things like, if we put a credible peace plan, then only then we can get rid of Hamas.
Oh, So
if you are put yourself in the position of the advisor to the Israeli state and the Israeli army how to get rid of Hamas.
Of course.
Truly, they suggest to do it in more human ways, but I don't think the role of the occupiers to select the leadership of the people under occupation, it never worked like this.
It's very liberal of them, very humane, very, very concerned, but the goal is more or less the same.
I think they are lost, Yani, to say that. I don't want to say the goal is the same, because the goal of the Israeli army is to annihilate the Palestinian people. They are not for annihilation of the Palestinian people, but they try to find a way to the Israeli public opinion, and in order to get legitimacy in the racist Israeli public opinion, they try to explain that their policy is more in the interest of Israel. So they fall in this trap. I think that most of them, I don't want to be bad at them. I think most of them have good intentions.
Yes.
But if you don't liberate them yourself from the need to justify yourself in Israeli public opinion, then you find yourself
in a tight spot.
In this position, which I don't want to give it titles, but it is a useless position.
Yeah, of course. This has been amazing, Yoav, and it's really a lesson about politics. If we could go to a more international, broader sense, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Sometimes it seems like Israel is more like a part of the US, of the United States of America, than almost like an independent country. They're just like a bit of one more state. And the relationship between the Israel politicians and the US establishment seems like an umbilical one. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. This is a subject that I really interested to speak about.
Yeah.
And I wrote some articles lately about it.
Yes.
You can see it in my blog. Anyway, my explanation of the relation between Israel and the United States is different from the common knowledge that is agreed between rightist and leftist political analysts. Okay? I think I wrote about it. I will try to make it short here.
Yeah.
There is a accepted explanation that is almost like a caricature. That they say that Netanyahu, everybody knows that Netanyahu have no principles. This is not, this is agreed.
Okay.
But, and everybody knows that Netanyahu's government is the main danger for Netanyahu is the right wing that might topple his government in case that he will do any concessions to Palestinians.
Okay.
Even stop the war, and not real concessions. So it is the picture, as everybody or most analysts put it, is that Ben Gvir holds Netanyahu from his eggs, from his balls.
Yeah.
And the Jewish lobby, AIPAC, holds Biden from his balls.
Yeah.
And this way, actually, Ben Gvir decides the policy of the United States. Okay, this is to put in short, long articles and long explanation why the war is still going on the way it is, and all the hollow talk about ceasefire and solutions is just talk. Okay?
Okay.
I think this is ridiculous, and it cannot be the truth. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, because, okay, this could be true for Biden as a person, okay?
Yes.
But we don't see that Biden is isolated in the United States in its support for this policy.
He isn't.
Like there is, the United States is very famous for having balances between different centers of power.
Mm-hmm.
And all the centers of power support this policy. Okay, there is a great majority of two parties that agree on very little about this support for Israel, even as it is performing genocide and endless war. And like in the beginning of the war, still the envoys from the West and from the United States would come to Israel and say, okay, we support you, but what is your end game? Until now, they didn't get an answer because there is no end game to this war. Only the end of the Palestinian people is the end game for Israel. So till now, they didn't get an answer and they stopped asking. And they stopped asking, but they didn't stop supporting the war.
Yeah.
So, and also not only all the parties and all the establishment, even all the main media support in this or this way this war. Okay? Also the BBC, also the New York Times.
Yeah.
Also everybody that is somebody in Western ruling elite support this war this way or that. Nobody calls the ace an ace. Okay?
Okay.
So this could not be only the technical fact that Ben Gvir controls Netanyahu. Okay? So you should look for deeper factors why this war is going on like this. And it is not the way it was before. Like in 2006, there was a war. It was 33 days. In 2014, there was a war, also maybe 35 days. And not because Israel stopped itself, like because somebody told her, there were responsible people in the United States, they say, okay, you beat the Arabs, now we need to continue doing our business. Okay?
Okay.
But now there is no, what they say, no responsible adults. The people in the United States now are pushing Israel to continue the war in spite of the fact that the war has no end game, no political goals, only military and destructive goals. So what is the logic of this confrontation? So my explanation is that we are in a special period of the international division of power, geopolitics. If like we lived along since the World War II, we lived in a period when the United States was the main international power.
Yes.
And after 1991, the United States was the sole international power.
Yes.
And this means that they had the military control and economic control and financial control and cultural control of everything, almost everything. And they used wars in order to enforce their political order. But currently, they are not anymore the sole international power. And if you look at the economic side, they are not even the main international power.
Yes.
I can argue about it as facts and graphs and so on.
Yeah.
But now China is the main economic power. So we are in we are in a period of imbalance when the main economic power is in the hands of China, but on the other side, the main military power is in the hands of the United States.
Yes.
So we see that countries that come to choose economic development, look for ways for economic development, look mostly for China for cooperation.
Yes.
But people that feel insecure and want military cooperation, most of them, they look for the United States. So the United States have actually an active interest in militarization of the international geopolitics. And this is what we see in Ukraine, this is what we see in the southern China Sea, or around Taiwan. And this is what we see in the war on drugs, in the war on terror, in the Sahel, everywhere. The United States is strong militarily. It has nothing to offer on other fronts. So it is it doesn't have a solution, but as long as the problems continue, it has an upper hand.
Yeah.
Temporarily, I believe it also will not stay like this forever.
Yes.
So actually today, you can see, for example, in our region, in the Middle East, like even the most staunch US allies, like Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and Egypt, they joined the BRICS.
Yeah.
They signed for economic cooperation with China. So the US becomes the disruptive power.
Yeah.
If people are afraid, if people think of war more than of development, then still the United States is the main power. So actually the United States is encouraging the continuation of the war, seeking to get some advantage in the geopolitics of the region and in the world.
Along a bit with India and, for instance, their proposal of an economical corridor from India to Israel.
I think this is complete rubbish.
You think?
Yeah, because if you look, you know everybody know about the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative.
Yes, the Belt and Road, yeah.
If you follow G7 summits, in every summit, they get a new initiative to compete with the BRI.
And they all fail.
Like a few years ago, they suggested BBB, Build Back Better, if you remember.
Yes, yes.
But the next year, in the next summit, they didn't say what they did in BBB. They suggested another initiative because they didn't do anything with the first initiative.
Yeah.
So I think the United States, what I say, have nothing to. They are not building anything significant now in the world. Yeah. So and of course Trump is even less inclined than anybody
to do so. Yeah.
To build anything significant that benefit anybody in the world. So and to put money for it. So this is bullshit, like slogans that they come from time to time in order to make some public relations
statement, and that's it.
And that's it. And this is completely non-started.
Just to conclude, at this point we have Israel fighting in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, bombing Syria, bombing Yemen. Do you think that this can evolve into a broader regional war? Do you think that that is something that the political Israeli establishment considers to be a path forward, or what do you think will happen in the future in the region?
I think First of all, I really hope that the war will stop somehow.
Yes,
Okay?
of course.
Even that today we don't see the mechanism, like I say from the first days of the war, Israel went to this war like a car that is accelerating downhill with no brakes. And they still accelerate.
Yes.
And there is no brakes because there is no responsible US. The only one in Israel there is no brakes, and this is a way it is like this by design. I say, like, when they attack with dogs, you don't ask why the dog didn't stop the attack, because the dog is built to attack, is educated to attack.
If you don't say the command to stop,
you ask when will the dog owners will stop the dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so the dog owners are sitting in the United States in the White House. And now they are sitting happy about their dogs biting everybody.
Yeah.
And there is no mechanism to stop the war. Even so, I hope some miracle will happen, and it should happen sometime, and it should stop somehow. I don't know how yet, Yani. But Israel is exhausted. Israel is not. First of all, Israel don't have the resources to wage this war. The resources are coming from the United States.
Yes.
The bombs, the airplanes, the money, the political power to wage this war is coming from the United States. Now, Israel, what is the highest hope of Israel is to drag the United States into another regional war.
Yeah.
Israel don't want to wage a bigger war by itself, because it hardly can do what it is doing now.
What it's doing, yes.
You can see, by the way, just small details. In 1982, Israel occupied most of Lebanon, including Beirut, and appointed a government in Lebanon. They stay in Lebanon, by the way, for 18 years until they had to withdraw under the resistance. In 2006, Israel made the mistake, and entered Lebanon with armored
vehicles, and they got all smashed.
They got all smashed, and they went out with their tails between their legs.
Yeah.
This time they are wise not to go in with their armor. So they only send small units of commando or battling unit to die in the southern area, in a small strip to the southern area of Lebanon, in order to justify to continue bombing Lebanon from the air without any. It is not only that they don't have a political endgame, they also don't have a military endgame.
Yes. And even so, their armor is getting wrecked. The Hezbollah releases several statements daily confirming that they are destroying their tanks, their bulldozers, their APCs, whatever.
Yes, but the way the army is saving themselves, they are only sending relatively small units to small distance in order to minimize losses. So they don't even militarily, they don't have a plan, actually. They just hope that something will happen to them.
Yeah, something will happen. Yeah, that's a great plan always.
Yeah. And so what Israeli really hope, and this even the leftist Israeli hope, the leftist Israeli establishment hope, is that the United States will go to war against Iran.
Yeah.
But the United States, I don't say they are smart, okay?
No.
But they were for 20 years in Afghanistan, and it didn't go so well.
Not well then.
And they were for 20 years in Iraq, more than 20 years now in Iraq.
And not going well.
And it is not going well, and it didn't give them anything, and they lost a lot of money and significant military losses also. So, and Iran is bigger problem from economical and military and geographic point of views in Iraq. And so the prospect of doing something, winning a war against Iran is smaller than the prospect of winning a war against Iraq or Afghanistan. And Iraq and Afghanistan were completely isolated when the United States attacked.
Yes.
Iran today have at least partial backing from Russia and from China.
Yes.
So I don't say that the United States will not attack Iran, because many people do many foolish things. But I think that this is something that many people in the United States, even conservative, reactionary people in the United States, understand that it is not in the interest of the United States. So actually, this is the only strategy for Israel today, is to hope that the United States will attack Iran. And still, I believe that most chances are that this will not happen. So there is actually attrition war, where nobody is getting anything, like the Palestinians pay the highest price, and the Arabs in general pay high price, and the Iranians pay a price. But also there is an attrition war. Israel also pay internal high price for this war. And because there is nobody responsible that can say stop, so it just drags on. But I hope somebody, at least from attrition, from fatigue, they will stop. At least now they stop. I don't think that there is a solution that anybody can win in the near future in this war. So they should stop somehow. And I believe that if you look at the longer term, I think that the power of the United States and the power of Israel is on the decline. And it is up for the Arabs to organize themselves to establish the foundation for a better Middle East. This is what I believe.
Yoav, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been, at least from our side, a really good interview. We won't keep you much longer. It's quite late there. Do you have any final words that you want to share with us?
I think I spoke everything about the Middle East. I want to remind everybody that this is part of an international struggle. Today, the Palestinian cause is at the center of the struggle between the oppressed people and the imperialism on the world scale. And I think that solidarity with the Palestinians is the most just case today to advocate everywhere in the world. But not only the most just case, it's the main front today in the struggle against militarism and against the destruction of the world by climate change and by Third World War. So please give us all the help that you can for the liberation of the Palestinian people, for the Middle East that is free for imperialism, and for a world that is better for people.
For everybody, yeah. We will try our best. Thank you very much for your time, for your patience, for your answers. It was great, and we will finish it here. Okay? Thank you, Yoav.
Thank you very much.